Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Film Odyssey podcast, where me and my brother trek through cinema on a quest to find the best films ever made. This season, we begin our journey by counting down the AFI top 100 films of all time. So come join us as we talk about Easy Rider. So, Randy, how does it feel to be back?
You mean after the helicopter ruined our recording?
Yeah. So this is our second go because we live in LA and there are helicopters circling all around us.
Well, it's only been like 15 minutes since the last recording that got ruined by said helicopter.
But, it happens.
These things happen.
But
So
yeah.
let's speed run the first part of the recording. No, I'm just joking.
All right, but Easy Rider. So
An acid western, as you described
an
it.
acid western.
And as it came true, it is indeed an acid western.
Yep, uses all the Western iconography. We even go to Monument Valley a few times. They're beautiful painting shots of America. And also they do drop acid near the end of the movie.
Yes. As well as smoke grass throughout basically the entire movie. I'm pretty sure this movie was just an excuse for Dennis Hopper to just get high all the time.
Kind of. Fun fact, all the drugs used in the movie were real, except for the LSD. Not because they didn't want to, they couldn't score any when the scene came up.
Oh, okay. Of course, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Weed, though, they had tons of that shit. Or as Jack Nicholson says, the marijuana, man.
Marijuana?
Yeah.
It's grass, man.
That scene is,
That scene's great.
Yeah.
That scene was just like, wow, Jack Nicholson really good.
yeah, Jack Nicholson's awesome in this movie, and he's only in it for, 20 minutes, something like that. He got a Best Supporting Actor nod for this.
Really?
Yeah.
Hell?
This movie was nominated for 2 Oscars, Best Supporting Actor and Best Screenplay. It didn't win either of them.
Okay.
But Jack Nicholson got his Best Supporting Actor nod, because
He's only in this movie for 20 minutes.
fucking Anthony Hopkins won for less than 15.
Alright, sure. You've got me.
I got you. But, it obviously didn't win for Best Screenplay because there was never a screenplay for this movie. Just FYI, everyone, there was a 12-page outline and they filmed 5 hours of footage. And then this movie got fixed in post.
Fixed.
Fixed. Randy
It probably did get fixed, let's be honest here.
Yeah. So
This movie feels really long, even though it's only 95 minutes.
yeah, I would say this movie definitely has a very methodical pace going
Methodical? No. I would say it's more laid back.
This movie burned one before the movie started, and then it was
Yes.
like, yo, man, we're going on this line. We're going to talk about aliens at some point in this movie, because Jack Nicholson got high on set, and this is what he wants to talk about.
About what did they're like
The
Venusians? I think it was Venusians. I think they're supposed to be aliens from Venus.
He's high. It just happens. Far out, man.
It was real far out. I saw a UFO, man.
So I guess to give context to this is what the movie's about. These 2 hippies, Billy and Wyatt, they score some money off their latest drug deal. They buy some Harleys and they're going to travel across America to Mardi Gras. And on the way, they encounter old cowboys, some hippie communes, and police, some small towns. They run across this ACLU lawyer played by Jack Nicholson. And through some murder, some mayhem, they finally make it to Mardi Gras, which
They get some hookers, which are supposed to be fancy hookers.
they were kind of fancy. One of them's a pop star from the 80s.
I get, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And they drop some LSD in a graveyard for some reason.
Where else would you drop LSD in the 60s, Randy?
Said pop star gets buck-ass naked, and then they die.
Yeah.
Not the pop star, but our main characters.
Yeah, Wyatt and Billy the Kid. Yeah.
That's basically it.
That's basically it. There's also a bunch of other, shit going on, but we'll get to that in a minute.
None of that shit really matters. It's mostly montages.
A lot of montage. A lot of biker music videos going on.
Yes, this is basically a lot of biker music videos. Soundtrack, great.
Soundtrack is banging. Across the board.
Get my things I liked and didn't like about the movie out of the way. I liked the soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
I liked the visuals of the movie, the dialogue, the characters.
There's some beautiful shots in this movie.
Yeah, there are some beautiful shots in this movie. Things I didn't like was so much the editing and the lack of plot.
This movie definitely is on a not even a first name basis with coherent narrative.
Okay, it might know it through a friend.
Might be able to call him up on a lazy Saturday.
Yeah, he might be able to be text his friend and be like, "Hey, yo, can I get his number?" I met him this one time, at this at this party, and I need to talk to him again, you know?
Yeah.
I need to brush up on it.
But yeah, I mean, honestly, so you don't like the editing? Is it just too weird?
It's a little too weird. Like, some of it's kind of cool. Like, there was one part that I thought was cool where it's like, they're at like this kind of like burnt down, like abandoned house or something.
Yeah.
Right? In the desert, as you do.
As you do.
And there's like a box with like a pocket watch in it and some papers, right? And the camera, like, it cuts to it, right? And the camera's just like focused on this. And you're assuming like one of the characters is going to walk up and like do something with this box, or they're gonna walk by it, right?
Yeah.
But what actually happens is that one of the characters walks like off screen to like another item on the ground, and then the camera like pans over. Just kind of weird, you know. It's a little like subversive, you know, where it's like you think something's gonna happen with what's already on screen, but it actually pans over to the character already doing something with a extremely similar item.
Yeah. There's also some things in the movie where it does, like, flash forwards, or it does, like, I call them, like, stutter cuts.
Yeah, the stutter cuts were weird. I really didn't like those.
Those ones you were not a fan of?
They were kind of cool, like, in theory, but I don't know. There was, like, a cadence to them that made them really off. Like, I don't think they got, like, the beat right with the cuts back and forth. Like, there's, like, I don't know if they were, like, not all the cuts were the same length or something, and like,
I mean, this
it
is
made
back,
it feel weird.
This is back in the day when they were still cutting on like physical film, so it that might also have been a thing where, you know, sometimes you're a frame off or a hair off either way when you're putting it together.
Yeah.
But honestly, I thought it was just so interesting. I mean, I'd say
it's
liked
interesting,
it.
but I didn't like it.
Differing of opinion. I would say I like the editing in here because it's a choice, and I like it when a film makes a choice and just fucking commits.
Just does it?
Yeah, this movie commits to all the weird shit it's doing.
I like that it commits to all the weird shit it's doing, but I don't have to like the weird shit it's doing, you know? Those are two different things, you know? I can separate them.
I guess. Honestly, the biggest thing I like about this movie is all the themes it's going on, because this movie is...
The themes are good.
It's got a lot to chew on.
I guess it's kind of one of these movies which the theme is more than the plot here.
Yeah.
The plot is only there to convey the themes, man.
I mean, what would you say is the biggest thing the movie is trying to communicate?
It's just kind of like a how do you say, a like unhappy failure to the hippie movement, basically, where it's like the movie's basically saying, like, you know, it kind of failed, like it didn't go anywhere, it didn't like really accomplish all that much, like it did some things, but like not as much as it wanted to.
Yeah.
And that it's not happy about it.
I see that too.
In kind of like a disappointed father kind of way, you know?
You tried so hard,
you
but
tried,
you just...
you just didn't get there, you know? Like
I had classes where I had teachers who were talking about like the 60s and hippie generation, all that stuff, and they were like, that was the last time, man, you know, where the people had the power, man, and they were able to change the world, man, and we blew it. We just missed the opportunity to make everything better. And I'm like, no, you were preoccupied getting stoned and fucking easy hippie chicks.
I mean, yeah.
That's basically that's kind of what the movie is. These guys have money, they have this perceived power, and they're
free men.
They're free men, and they spend it banging hippie chicks and getting a high at Mardi Gras.
Yep.
And they're like, we kind of blew it. We had this opportunity, but we
why at the end of the movies? That's what he says. We blew it. We blew it, man. Billy doesn't understand.
Yeah,
Billy's like, what do you mean?
Weird.
What do we blew? We made it.
At the beginning of the movie, Billy seems more of, which is really weird to say, Billy seems more of like a realist as opposed to Wyatt. Because when there is. You would say that's completely true?
He is. I mean, like, in like kind of like the middle part of the movie when they go to the actual hippie commune, and he's just like, it's sand, man. You're not going to grow anything out here.
You're a bunch of fucking hippie kids, or city kids. You guys have never had to grow anything for food.
The thing is that he's more of a realist, but he's more of like a realist in the moment. Mm-hmm. While, like, Wyatt, like, he's really optimistic, right? But then, at the end of the movie, he kind of, like, looks back at everything, and he realized, like, shit, we didn't actually do anything.
We're kind of
It has, like, kind of, like, retrospective, you know, while Wyatt's always kind of, like, looking for, or not Wyatt, Billy's kind of always looking forward, you know? While Wyatt kind of has that, like, ability to, like, look back at what he's done and be like, man, we didn't do shit.
Yeah. I mean, let's talk about that commune scene for a minute, because there's a lot in that moment. Because I feel do you think that's an indictment of the hippie culture?
I'm not sure if it's how do you mean indictment?
Where it is their critique on the hippie movement and pointing out this was a flawed concept from the start.
No, I don't think in that sense.
You don't think it's that cynical?
I don't think it's that cynical. I think it's kind of like this, looking back on it and seeing like how misguided and too optimistic it was to achieve its goals. You know, I don't think it's like looking back at it in like a mean way, you know, being like, these fucking stupid ass kids, you know, type of thing. It's kind of like, you know, like, you guys were so close and you just blew it, you know, like,
just
like these people, you know, in like the hippie commune, right? It's like they're willing to work together to like do these things, to like work to try and achieve their goals. They just don't know how, you know, they just kind of do it.
Yeah.
Which is like, and it's an admirable quality, you know, to just like, you don't know how to do it, but you just do it anyways, you know, you like try, right? But the thing is that they needed the knowledge, you know, they needed to know that they can't just plant seeds in a random patch of sand, you know, and it's gonna grow shit.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the one guy's like, you know, oh, do you guys get a lot of rain here? And he's like, oh, we'll have to dance for it. And it's like,
bro, you're kind of fucked.
Bro, it's kind of fucked. Like, you guys are fucked.
You guys have one goat. And there's like 20 people. You guys are fucked. Also, you also have a weird thing with like the mime troupe.
Yeah.
Where we don't see them planting anything. They're that weird artistic quality of, you know, oh, we're contributing to the commune by like performance and art and all that stuff. But I'm like, you're not growing in entertainment. But I'm like, you're not growing food.
Yeah.
Fucking like, you were 40 people and half of you fucking left because there wasn't enough food. I'm sure you guys would be better put to getting food. I'm sorry, that's one of those things that always gets me about hippie commune things, where it's like, we're gonna get high and just like party and bongo drums, like, but fucking food.
Well,
sorry.
It's just one of these things, you know, it's one of these things where it's like they're optimistic about their future, you know, like the optimism is oozing from these people, you know.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things where at the end of the movie, you know, Wyatt kind of understands like there was too much of it. You know, we blew it, you know. We had our chance, but we just got too high. Our heads were in the clouds, man. Like, you know, literally and metaphorically. You know,
Randy
said, Mary Jane, man.
Yeah, there's a lot of weed being smoked in this movie.
Mostly by Dennis Hopper.
I mean,
in every scene, he goes through at least 2 joints.
Correct. Accurate.
Or joints or what else are they called? Because there's apparently a difference, as told by our friend who smoked the marijuana.
Oh, yes.
There's a difference between joints and there's like another one. I don't remember what it's called.
Oh, God, fucking...
I don't fucking...
Blunts.
Blunts, yeah. Joints and blunts are different things. So I don't know how many of which Dennis Hopper went through in the movie. You know, I'm too much of a straight edge boy to know these things, but he went through a fucking lot of them in this movie, and apparently they were all real.
Yep. Every drug used in the movie was real except for the LSD. Not because they didn't want to, they couldn't score any when they were filming the scene, which is
Did that
weird.
affect the way that they filmed it, do you think?
Possibly.
Because they had to film it more sober? I mean, they were probably still high.
Oh, most definitely.
But they had to film it a little more sober. Do you think, like, if they actually had the LSD to film that scene,
it would have been unfucking watchable.
It'd have been unwatchable.
Unfucking watchable. They'd been giving it to the cameraman, and it would have been unfucking watchable.
Over.
The first cut of this movie, I don't know if I said it, but it was
I think you've said
5 hours long. 5 fucking hours of this.
And it was probably But the thing, though, is that it was probably mostly the driving across the country montage scenes.
You would fucking think.
They probably went on for 40 minutes each in, like, the, in the 5-hour-long version of this movie.
Fucking maybe, dude, but, like...
Also, those driving montage scenes, each one of those could be its own music video.
Honestly, I think they are. I think if you look up Born to be Wild on YouTube, it's just that sequence from the movie.
Really?
I'm pretty sure that's the official music video.
That'd be pretty sweet.
But yeah, I mean, this movie, I think there's so many other things going on, because I also look at this as kind of a obituary of that counterculture 60s like optimism.
Yeah.
Because this comes out in July. In August we get Woodstock, which is everyone considers that's the peak of like the hippie movement. Like, oh, we can achieve anything. And then the Manson murders happen a week after, which everyone has unanimously agreed is that's when the hippie movement fucking died.
Yeah.
That's when 60s optimism was over.
Yeah, because you saw the other half of the, like hippie commune movement, right? You saw the two sides of it. You see Woodstock and you see the Manson murders, and you're like, oh, maybe this isn't such a great idea.
Yeah. Also, fun fact, Easy Rider was Charles Manson's favorite film.
Yikes.
Big yikes, right?
Yikes. Way it goes, though.
It's the way it goes.
It's the way it goes.
It's the way it goes. But yeah, so I look at it like that because this is really... Because this, Bonnie and Clyde, and The Graduate are the movies that really signal off, like, New Hollywood and all that stuff. Like, hey, this is what's going to be happening. Movies are going to have a lot more of a somber tone. They're going to have more downer endings. They're going to be more introspective. They're going to be more about, like, real people and less about, like, that old Hollywood big cinematic glitz and glamour and all that stuff. These are the movies that kind of change and bring us into...
The movies are going to be a little bit more dirty.
Yeah, we're going to get Taxi Driver, French Connection. We're going to get fucking Raging Bull as the tail end of this.
Yeah.
It's really interesting to look at it as kind of the obituary, the final, like, farewell to the counterculture, because it shows it where it's like, these guys go through America, and they see the Roosevelt Hotel, that's where Bobby Kennedy was assassinated, and then you also see the commune and how that's, like, failing, that hippie idealism is failing. You see these old, like, Western, like, cowboy guys, and they're, like, so relegated to, like, the rural areas, they're sustainable, but they're, like, the old generation, and they already are kind of on the out. They're already basically gone.
Yeah, there's very few of them.
Very few of them. And then once we get to Mardi Gras and it's the big party and everything, these guys finally realize, hey, we finally made it to the shindig, and we got nothing out of it. We made it to the top and we did nothing.
Well, Wyatt realizes that, but Billy doesn't, Wyatt realizes that at the end, like, that didn't mean anything what they did, and Billy's just kind of, like, living in the moment, just kind of being like...
Dude, we banged Tony Basil, man.
We banged Tony Basil, bro.
Hey, Mickey, you're so fine.
Exactly.
It's that lady.
And it's just kind of one of these things where it's like, Wyatt kind of realizes it's all for naught, They didn't accomplish anything, they just had a good time. Is that worth it? Just having a good time, not doing anything with all this money they made, just spending it for some thrills.
Yeah.
And I think, Billy is kind of okay with that. He's like, oh, we're just going to retire here in Florida,
We made it, we got our money and we're done. It's the same thing that that a lot of people accused the hippie, like the old baby boomer hippie generation of, like, selling out when they voted for Ronald Reagan in the 1980s.
Uh-huh.
And it's the same thing where it's like, Billy's like, hey, man, we got ours, we finally got our money. And that's the same thing Reagan promised the baby boomers. Like, hey, I know it was hard, but if you vote for me, you'll get, you'll finally get your piece of the pie.
Yeah, yeah.
And, not to get too political, but this movie is kind of political.
It is. I mean, yeah.
It's this indictment of that whole generation.
I don't think it's like an indictment where it's like a malicious looking back at it, right? Where it's like, oh, these stupid fucking kids. Yeah. But it's more like, like they were so close, but they were like Icarus, Like they got too close to the sun, They were becoming too free. They let themselves go, Like they were too focused on, like, love and freedom and happiness, man, and just, like, doing whatever you feel like doing. And they forgot about things like, food and structure and whatnot, and, like...
ensuring that was sustainable in the long term.
Yes. Like, they forgot about their structure, And it's like, it's, it's like they melted away after they got too close to, like, this, like, true freedom that they kind of discuss in the movie, where when Jack Nicholson shows up and he's talking to them about it.
Also, Jack Nicholson's in this movie.
And he's very good.
He's, like, the best in this movie.
Yes.
I really like Jack Nicholson, especially the shit he did in, like, the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
It's so good. And this is his first Best Supporting Actor nom.
And he's so captivating.
He's so easy to watch. I can see why he became the movie star out of this. Like, don't get me wrong, Peter Fonda, he was in, a lot of movies after this. Same with Dennis Hopper. But like I can
Dennis
see
Hopper was even in Waterworld.
He
One
was
of the
in
greatest movies of all time.
Waterworld, people. Fucking Waterworld. From Easy Rider to Waterworld. I need that biopic of Dennis Hopper's life. But Jack Nicholson is one of those actors who, watching his performance in this, I can see why he became an A-list star for like fucking 3 fucking decades. Because
the acting in this movie is pretty good, especially considering that there was no script. There was just a 12-page outline for the whole movie. All
of it was improv, and they just kind of made it up as they went along, and then they fixed it all in the editing bay.
And, the other actors are pretty good in this, but, like, when Jack Nicholson shows up, he's just the life of the party, He is the center of attention. He steals all the scenes he's in.
And he's playing the square.
Yeah, he's supposed to be like, I'm a boozing man. I don't smoke no marijuana? Is that what you're trying to give me? Oh, I don't know. I already have my own problems with the booze.
He's like, I used to play football in high school. I'm a lawyer. I'm a lawman now for the ACLU. And it's so...
And then he takes 2 tokes of the grass, and he's already talking about the Venusians, the aliens from Venus.
2 drags from a joint, and he turns into Joe Rogan. Like, right a fucking way.
That's a pretty good one.
It's fucking true. And it's so captivating because at that moment when he starts talking about the aliens, and I'm just like, I'm in. I'm like invested. I'm like, nah, I can see why this man was nominated for an Oscar. Because I'm invested in him just rambling, stoned, probably actually stoned out of his mind talking about aliens, and I'm in it.
And Billy's just like, no, man, there's no aliens. Like, I just saw something in the sky. Like, it's nothing, man. And
Peter Fonda's like, groovy, man.
Well, Peter Fonda's just like watching this all happen, being like, what the fuck? and Jack Nicholson gets so into it, right? His character like discussing the aliens at his joint, like what's it called? The fire runs out on it, right? It like unlights,
Yeah, it puts itself out.
Yeah, it puts itself out. And Peter Fonda kind of has to go like, you really like that joint, didn't you? And he's like, oh, yeah, I just got so into it, it just went out on me, man. Wow. It's so good.
It's good. It's solid. And also, I know Jack Nicholson, I say, is the best actor in this, but Peter Fonda is fucking holding a lot of this movie together.
Yeah, because he's the more relatable character between him and Dennis Hopper, right? Because Dennis Hopper's kind of more out there,
He's full hippie.
Yeah, he's gone full hippie, while Peter Fonda, he still's got the hair a little higher, He's not going full down to the shoulders and whatnot.
He could definitely, put a suit on and still, like, walk into that diner.
Yeah, put a suit on, shave, and walk into the diner, and, like, that comes later on in the movie when they reach, like, the South.
The South.
Because I'm pretty sure that's what, like, that montage before they get there is supposed to represent. Is them, like, reaching the South.
That's supposed to be what that is. They get into, like, the rural parts of the South, right before they hit, Mardi Gras, New Orleans, and then, Jack Nicholson gets fucking beaten to death in the night.
It's kind of... Can I go back a little bit?
Yeah, we can go back.
So that montage, is it bad of me to be like, kind of like put my hands on my... Who directed this movie? It was
Dennis Hopper.
Dennis Hopper, right?
Dennis Hopper directed.
So is it kind of bad for me to put my hands on my hips and like kind of like look at Dennis Hopper and be like, really? To represent that we've moved to the South, the first thing you show is like a shack with some black people. Come on, Dennis Hopper.
I mean, it's a little
on the nose there, Dennis Hopper. Is that
yeah.
bad of me to like do that?
I mean, also that's another thing. Are those the only black people we see in the movie?
Other than people in Mardi Gras.
And that's like documentary footage, borderline of them just wandering around Mardi Gras.
Yeah, like what's it called? Like that they used it as like basically like pilot footage for the movie.
Yeah,
but yeah, basically.
Is that kind of fucked up? Is that a little fucked up? Or is it just like?
I mean. Maybe? Like...
It's a little weird, right?
Did they film most of the stuff on location, or...?
Yeah, they filmed it basically across the country, as far as I know.
It could have just been, like, each place they stopped, like, they didn't really have... Like, they just got whoever they could to act for them at the time,
Yeah, I mean...
Or actually, I don't know, like, did they, like, recruit everybody in Hollywood and then, like, go drive them across country? Like, I don't know how they did the acting.
I think that's actually how it was. The production for this is fucking weird.
It is really weird.
Because it's stoner ramblings told, like, secondhand. But, yeah, from what I can tell from the production is that they got the crew, got on the bikes, and kind of drove more or less across the country, or at least in like, the Southwest and stuff like that, and that's like how they did a lot of the filming. I'm just pointing out that I think it's a little weird that the only black people we see in the movie are
in New Orleans.
In New Orleans, in the like poor shacks, but we have Jack Nicholson as an ACLU lawyer, which is a little weird. And
is that a commentary on its own, or is that just something that happened?
It might be a comment. You want to take this one?
I think I would lean more to it just happened than it's like a commentary on anything. Because like when we get, or maybe it is a commentary on things, because when we get to the diner, right, and it's like, the diner's all a bunch of white folk.
Yeah.
And they're like...
And they're kind of treating the hippies like you would suspect them to treat African-American people if they showed up to this country bumpkin diner.
Country bumpkin diner where there's like some like early high school girls, the sheriff, and then some...
Good old boys.
Some good old boys.
Yeah. I guess we'd call them what they are, fucking rednecks.
Yeah, I mean, they're basically all rednecks. But, I mean, it's just the way it goes, Down there in the South, there's a lot of rednecks.
Yeah.
And they're all kind of, like, talking about, like, the three guys as they show up in the diner, right? And they're, like, being, like, really, like, openly rude to them. Like, talking to a point where, like, obviously they can hear them.
Yeah.
The lady behind the counter isn't serving them. They're kind of, like, just sitting there.
Megan very aware that they are not welcomed here.
Yeah. Except for the girls. Those like, little, like, high school girls. Or, I guess, like, early high school. They all look pretty young.
Yeah.
They're, like, all like, ooh, look at them. Oh, my.
Woo-woo.
I like the one with the suspenders. I like his eyes. And
that's not cringy, everyone. That is verbatim lines from this movie.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, that's exactly what they say. And it's kind of weird, to have that juxtaposition of, like, that they like these new, strange men that have come into their town, but it's, like, the sheriff and, like, the good old boys are like, oh, who are these strange men that have come into our town? And it's kind of showing that, like, transition, right, from one to the other, to where, like, this is more accepted on one end, and... They're basically gonna eventually get beat up by these people in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
On the other end, Rest in peace, Jack Nicholson's character.
What's up? And that's another thing. Like, Jack Nicholson's character gets beaten to death at the middle of the night, and then the guys are like, well, I guess we gotta just keep getting on.
It's kind of one of those things where it's like, what are they gonna do,
I mean, it's still cold as hell.
Yeah, it's cold as hell, but I mean, like, it was colder that they just killed them in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
They almost killed Peter Fonda's character.
Man, this movie gets a little depressing the more I think about it.
It just gets, like, really strange and weird. Like, they were kind of, like, in their element in, like, in the Southwest, right?
Yeah.
But, like, as they
Open desert, old Western iconography, they're at home.
And then they make it more to the southeast, to the south. And the farther and farther they get in, the more that they're foreign to this area, that, like, people don't just accept them. Like, even when they're, like, in what I assume is Texas, and they meet Jack Nicholson's character.
I think that's Texas. I think.
It's probably supposed to be Texas. And that's kind of like that middle point, to where it's like they're not totally ostracized, right? But they're not totally accepted.
Yeah, they get pulled over for
parading without a
permit.
A permit, because they're just like going along.
I've heard of trumped up charges, but
and they were parading and they did not have a permit.
Yeah, but people paid top dollar to see Billy the Kid and Captain America, man.
Oh God, get out of here! But that is the excuse they use in the movie. It's totally bogus.
Oh
obviously.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And but like the further and further they get into like the South, right? The more ostracized they are. The more that like this is kind of like the defense of the old guard type of thing.
Yeah. Which
eventually ending with them getting shot by just some guys in some truck.
Yeah. Also, that's another thing about like the old guard and all that stuff, because these guys are using the iconography of the quote-unquote old guard, right?
Yes.
Throughout the movie. I mean, Billy, his nickname's Billy the Kid. Wyatt is named Wyatt, like Wyatt Earp, Tombstone, and his nickname's Captain America. He rides around with a fucking American flag on his chest. And they're really taking, like, visually the film's relating these guys to, like, Old West cowboys, they're riding their Harleys through the desert. See, again, Monument Valley, which is in every fucking western of old Hollywood, because it's beautiful. And we're really seeing these guys being presented as like, hey, You know, we're basically the same as the old guys, but we're just like the new version. You know, we're the same as cowboys, and cowboys were, you know, America's bread and butter hero for decades and decades. And these biker guys, like, we're basically the same thing. We're just like the counterculture equivalency.
Yeah, but it's kind of like one of those things where it's like that, like, they probably thought of themselves as that, but everybody doesn't see them that way. You know, they see cowboys as troublemakers. It's just like how cowboys became heroes post-mortem. You know, Cowboys weren't heroes at the time. They're students, troublemakers. You know, they're all cattle wranglers or shit like that. You know, they're what is it called? What's the term where they like go and steal people's cattle?
Cattle rustling.
Cattle rustlers. Yeah, they're all cattle rustlers.
Which is also kind of weird because even bikers have that same mythologization. Because people are like, oh, bikers, you know, free open road, riding around, you know, all that stuff. But I'm like, in the time, they were, you know, getting drunk and beating the shit out of people in bars.
Yeah, that's like kind of how it's, you know, it was seen at the time. And then like post-mortem, they get seen as like this free, you know, show of their way of life, you know, and all this stuff. And it's just kind of like, this movie is almost a post-mortem of the hippie movement, except just not quite. It's at the tail end, but it didn't know it at the time.
Yeah, it kind of built into it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, this movie is just so fascinating to look at in like this micro sense, right? Where it's like we're looking at each little facet and be like, okay, this says something way bigger than like the whole movie is putting together. And there's all these themes going on, and we can pull so much out of Wyatt's character and Billy's character and how their odyssey through America. And people have called this people have equated the story as these guys are searching for the American dream. Do you see that in here?
I hate that terminology. Like,
really?
Searching for the American dream, like searching for what, like freedom? Because the American dream is different to everybody, you know?
Yeah.
So are they searching for their own version of the American dream, for their own sense of freedom or accomplishment or whatever?
I mean,
it's like, I guess, but isn't everybody like...
Everyone's looking for it, right?
It's such a non-starter type of thing.
Yeah, because it's like, how do you define the American dream? And it's like, that is so subjective.
And it's like, you know, and isn't everybody looking for that same thing that's also ever-changing, you know? It's like, it's such a non-thing. But, I mean, they are looking for their American dream, right? And I guess they're pursuing it very closely, you know? It's not like one of these things where it's like, people expect, like, their dreams to, like, come to them, you know? But these people are, like, out there, pursuing theirs, you know? They're gonna get it.
I mean, like, on paper, they kind of already have it. Like, they're not tied down. They're completely free to do whatever, whenever they want.
Apparently, they have a bunch of money.
They have plenty of cash put in, like, a teardrop gas tank in Wyatt's motorcycle. They have all the money they'll ever need. They have no real wants they can't fulfill with cash or, you know, the old Dennis Hopper charm. And they're just out in America. Like, they can do whatever they want. Like, is the American dream something that's not related to just abject pure freedom financially and physically? Is it more related to some sense of like societal change and stability, or what? It's this thing where it gets really vague and philosophical really quickly.
And it's also kind of like, what were the characters in this movie trying to like accomplish? What were their goals, you know?
What were their goals? Because on paper their goal is, we're going to get to Mardi Gras.
Billy's is pretty straightforward. Billy wants to get to Mardi Gras, have himself a good time, go to Florida and retire. What is Wyatt doing?
I mean, Wyatt's our main character.
But it also seems like he's kind of just like following Billy.
I almost think Wyatt is looking for purpose.
Is Wyatt kind of waiting for something to happen on his journey? Something to like hit him with that realization of like, nah, this is what I want, man.
He was ready to stay at the commune.
But the thing is, he didn't.
I'm looking at this, it's like, Wyatt, he's looking for purpose. He's looking for a reason to be. He's looking for home somewhere. When he talks to the cowboys at the beginning of the movie, he's like, man, you got a nice place here. Not many people can live off the land, but you got a nice setup here. You, your wife, kids, family, all that stuff. And I think he's looking for that. He's looking for some kind of family thing. And when we have him in the graveyard and he's tripping balls and he's holding the statue of the angel and he's talking about his mom and how she like killed herself and how he lost that like familia thing. I think he's looking for like family or like a family unit he can attach to, and he can't find it. even in this era of free love, free everything, like, we can all be one together. Like, he can't find it even in that kind of society. Wyatt seems to me as a person who's so scarred by his own past that he can't exist in this world without something. I don't know. I kind of lost my thread there.
Well,
I took a bit of the Jack Nicholson copium. I'm just wanted right now.
Well, basically, Wyatt's looking for that, like, familial, like, pact, right? But he won't be able to really find it in this kind of free love, free association between people kind of thing. Because having that kind of, like, real bond with somebody else, right, is kind of a one-on-one type of thing, like...
It's also something from the old old society.
So I think Wyatt's character is kind of like... Wyatt's kind of mixed up in all this almost, where he's kind of like, he doesn't know what's going on, he doesn't know what he's doing, why he's doing it. He just kind of is doing it because it seems what's most convenient at the time. And kind of Billy has more of a goal. He wants to get to Mardi Gras. He wants to party, have a good time, hit up that whorehouse Jack Nicholson told him about.
Apparently it's the best in the South.
And go to Florida and retire. He's got a plan. His plan's not going to do much, right? But he's got a plan.
Other than, like, please just himself. And I think that's another thing. Billy is looking for purely singular fulfillment.
Yeah.
And I think Wyatt's looking for some sort of, like, higher level of fulfillment. Like, he wants to fulfill some, like, abstract thing of his life that I don't even think he could place a finger on.
Yeah.
Where Billy is just like, yo,
I just want to feel good, have a good time.
I think that's another thing. Billy is the atypical, like, stereotype of a hippie, right?
Yes.
He smokes grass, wants to bang everything that moves, long hair, fringe jacket. Whereas we have Wyatt, who's like 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
Yeah.
He's in the he's in the hippie culture, but he's not committed to it.
Yeah.
Like, he could step out at any time. And then we have Jack Nicholson's character, who's completely out of it. And he gets a little tempted into it, but he is pretty solidly the square out of the three.
Yes.
And it's interesting to see these characters traveling, because now we kind of get another thing, because even Jack Nicholson's character, I think his name's George, wants to go to Mardi Gras. For the same reason Billy wants to. He wants to have a good time.
Yeah.
I got a card from the best whorehouse in Louisiana. I'm fucking going, alright? It's Mardi Gras, let's go. And then even Wyatt, who is in both sides of their world, still doesn't want what either of them wants. Which is really interesting. God damn it. Peter Fonda, he's playing a deep character here.
Even though he didn't have any written lines.
He didn't have dick.
The script was not there.
It was suggested on blunt wraps.
Probably. Oh, another thing that we haven't discussed yet, though, is that Jack Nicholson isn't the first person they pick up on their journey.
No, they pick up that hippie guy. I think his name's Jesus? No.
Jesus?
No.
Jesus?
That was the guy that sold him the cocaine at the beginning of the movie. That character's name is... Oh, wait, sorry. Stranger on the Highway. Man. Well, fuck this guy.
He's literally credited as Stranger on a Highway.
He's just the spirit of the West, man. He's Judge Holden.
Well, he's like I would say, like, he's like the commune leader kind of guy,
That character, I look at him and I'm like, he's representing a part of the hippie culture that's even farther than Billy. And I think that's the thing about those characters, right? Jack Nicholson's character, George, is full square, and this guy is full, I guess, zigzag wiggle wobble lines. I don't know. And I think that's like the dichotomy, right? That's that's why they're in two separate halves of the movie. But yeah,
this guy also he also represents the kind of the hippie idea of like running from something, right? You join this commune because you're trying to get away from something. He doesn't even want to discuss like where he's from with Billy, right? Billy asks him, where you're from, and he gets like real defensive, He's like, I'm from a city. All cities are the same, man. It seems like there's like something that happened to him that like caused him to just run away to the wild outback, and to become this kind of like a communal living type of thing, It's like, it seems like something where it's like he got like screwed by a finance company, or he got fired from kind of one of these square jobs in a cubicle, like.
It is interesting that you
where he was
take it that line.
Where he was like a part of some kind of like very structured thing, you know, very structured part of like society of quote unquote the man, and he was burned and he decided to go the complete opposite way. Like that's what that character like conveys to me.
I mean, it's interesting to look at it in that way because I would agree that he seems like somebody burned by, you know, society, by the man or whatever, but I guess this might be me reading way, way too far into it. But because this is taking place in 1969, right?
Yeah.
Vietnam had been going on for how long at this point? Like a lot of years.
Yes.
And the movie itself, I don't think makes a direct comment about Vietnam. I don't think so. Not really.
Because Vietnam would go on for a while after this as well.
Yeah. I think it ends in, 74? 3?
Something like that.
Yeah. I'm sorry for everybody if I don't know the exact date Vietnam ended. But
or when it started.
It was 64. I know when it started. Whenever LBJ got in.
Okay.
But that's the thing. Because that character, I wonder if he's supposed to be the disillusioned youth that... Like, the youth that was disillusioned by America's going into Vietnam, right? I know that, like, Vietnam was the most unpopular war America had in the 20th century. Mass protest, everyone fucking hated it. They were like, America and the government is a sham and they're just doing this for XYZ. And they're like, I'm out.
Yeah.
And this guy is like, well, you know, I'm out of society. I don't want to go back to the city, man, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, is he a draft dodger? Is that like why? He's like, I'm from a city, and it's like, you know, I don't want to say where I'm from, because if you know where I'm from, then maybe you guys will figure out, like, X, Y, and Z. And he's like, that's why I'm out here, even though half the fucking communists left. You know, I'll be the leader. As long as I'm the leader, then, you know, I can at least stay here and not go off to Vietnam. And I mean, even the ending where they're shot and it pulls out, like when Wyatt and Billy are shot, and it's that fire on the side of the road and it pulls out and it's over that big river and it's like all that greenery around. That looks like something we would have seen in Platoon. And
sure.
I wonder if that's the thing where it's like, oh, we followed these guys for this long. They were about, you know, peace, love, and having a good time, and they just died for no reason. Like all the guys dying out in the jungle. Like, I wonder if this movie has a Vietnam thing going on at some bits of it.
It'd probably be subtle and a little, like... It would be like that last scene, where I don't think, like, the whole underscoring of Vietnam is throughout the movie. I think it's more about the hippie movement, and not so much about Vietnam. I think maybe if this movie came out, like, a couple years later, it would have more of an idea about Vietnam, about how it feels about Vietnam. But that last scene of the fiery motorcycle on the side of the river with the forest surrounding it is kind of an homage to Vietnam.
Mm.
Or I'm not sure if homage is the right room, but
definitely a visual reference.
A visual reference to Vietnam, but I don't think it's like squarely commenting on it, right?
Mm.
Like if this came out in like 73 or 72, right? Like it would have a more concrete reference. Somebody in this would be a Vietnam veteran.
Yeah. Man, this movie's kind of deeper than I thought it was.
It is really deep for how kind of lazy, laissez-faire, you know, wishy-washy, go with the flow it is, you know.
Yeah. Honestly, I was going into this thinking, because I've heard people say this should not be on the AFI list, because, oh, this was good for the time. I respect what it did for cinema, but we are modern now, and we don't need this anymore. And I think we still kind of do.
We definitely still need this movie. Like, even watching it now, like, the hippie culture thing is like basically dead as doornails.
Yeah,
like it's
the hippies became the enemy, guys.
Oh God,
the hippies were the boomers. The boomers are the enemy.
The boomers are the enemy. Okay, boomer. So, but basically, you know, the movement's dead as doornails, right?
Yeah, and
having this movie around to like remind us of it during it, you know, a movie of its subject in its subject, you know, like this movie was filmed in the hippie movement. It was not dead yet. Soon. But it wasn't dead yet. And it kind of like gives like a good like look at it to where you can kind of like understand it from like different sides of it, you know.
It's also a very mature take.
It is a mature take.
That whole era of society.
You know what? A lot of the movies that we've watched on the AFI that are kind of like social commentaries, I think are on here because they're mature takes on the matter.
Yeah.
This is a mature take on this. Do the Right Thing was a mature take on its subject.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. Because, okay, Do the Right Thing, I guess, is a good parallel in terms of, like, mature takes on
Their subject matter.
On subjects or parts of society, right? It's doing race. This is doing the whole counterculture. And it's having a mature take on, these were the flaws of the counterculture. These were the things that it could have done, should have done, but it didn't. And these are the failings of it.
Another thing, though, about like referring to this movie as like a mature take on like a counterculture movement is that it's not the whole thing. No, it doesn't. It's not like trying to be all encompassing or anything like that. It does what it does. It's still a movie after all. Like it's not so much as like a commentary on it as it is a movie first and foremost. You know, it's supposed to, even though it's kind of a little artsy, you know, kind of does its own things. This is not so much as like a direct commentary on it. It is a movie.
For the point that it's a movie, I'm going to ask you a question. I want to just take a wild shot in the dark. First thing comes to your head. How much do you think this movie made at the box office? For it being like an artsy, you know, whatever biker film.
So the hippie movement's still around. They might go see the movie, although I'm not sure how much money they have.
Right.
So I'm going to say it made like, I don't know, twice its budget. It was a success.
Okay, its budget was $400,000, somewhere around there.
Okay, I'm gonna say it made like 4 times its budget then.
Okay, so what's that like?
Like made like $1.6 million.
$60 million.
$60 million.
This movie was one of the most
wildly successful,
one of the most profitable films of all time. For how much it cost and how much it made, it was a runaway success, and it wasn't even like the most successful film of that year. Yeah, but that's the crazy thing. Because this movie just tapped in at the right moment on the right cultural pulse that just
at the end of it.
Well, it's the other thing, it's just the end of it, and it is also that, like, hey guys, you know, we had a good run, but it's over.
And it kind of like, you know, the people that were like in the movement and they watched the movie, they might have that kind of like the same realization that Wyatt has, being like, ah, shit.
We had our chance and we blew it.
You know, we flew too close to the sun, you know. But is that kind of like a weird thing too? Is that like this movie might have also influenced the movement because it has that moment in it?
I don't think so.
And then people that are part of the movement, they see the movie and then they kind of get influenced and have that same reaction, and it's like a chain reaction type thing?
No. I think...
You don't think so?
Movie
made $60 million. Lots of people saw this movie.
I know a shit ton of people saw this movie, but that's the other thing. I feel... Because the counterculture wasn't... It's a weird thing to call it like a movement because it wasn't like super organized.
Well, yeah, obviously it's not structured.
Yeah, but that was the thing where it's like, I think...
And there's also other movements going on at the same time.
Lots.
I mean, like in the 60s, there's civil rights movement too.
Yeah, I think this really just comes down to the fact that this movie saw how things were going and just put it up on screen. And then a couple months after this, everybody was like, fucking Nostradamus over here. Fucking called shot. Because I really think...
You don't think it had much effect at all for the demise of the...
I think it was already on the decline. It hit the peak at Woodstock. That was the tip, and then, you know, however long later, it was already like, yeah, that was it, guys. You know, it's over. Because once we get into 1970, all of our films and art and all that stuff has this very downer, more gritty, more introspective turn to it.
Which I think is a lot of like, kind of like the Vietnam War kind of flipping to where it's like, you know, the people don't like the war, but it's not going terribly for us.
Yeah.
And then in like early 70s, it starts going really badly.
Yeah, around 69. That's when I believe that's when everybody was like, oh, wait, we have a possibility of losing this? That's a thing that could happen?
Yeah, and the whole public, like, vision of the Vietnam War kind of flipped around. And I'm not sure if, like, the movies getting flipped influenced that, or if the Vietnam War influenced, like, the general public sense and made the movies more kind of gritty and downers.
Well, that's
and
what happened
whatnot.
because the Vietnam War was the first televised war. We saw live, battle footage. And that was back in the 70s and 60s where there was no censorship. You saw, real soldiers getting, shot and shit. That was, the thing you could see on, the news at 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
And once we get into the 70s, that's when, American cinema is like, all right, guys, this is our fucking hangover from the 60s. We had this shot, we fucking missed, we got into this war that basically ruined our optimism. We have no trust in authority anymore. It's just, we're the kids, and we finally got a shot at running the asylum. Let's just do what we do. And that's kind of beautiful, because this movie also showed the studio system, because it was dying at that point. It was basically gonna be dead.
Yeah.
Because these movies became huge spectacle things, and they didn't make any money. Cleopatra sunk MGM.
And it was like a change in eras, basically baby boomers, the people that were born right after the war, they're all in their early 20s, or their late teens, depending on when they were born. And it's kind of well, now this is your new audience, studio system, and studio system goes, nay, they are not my audience. My audience is the silent generation, or whoever.
Yeah, and that's and that was the thing.
And it kind of backfired. They didn't make any money on it.
Yeah.
And then it shows that, you should try to appeal to these early 20-somethings.
And the other thing is, this movie being a movie made by young guys who were these outside studio people, and they made this movie for basically fucking nothing, talking about just real shit, made all the fucking money. And these guys, the studio guys are like, maybe we should let some of these younger guys get a whack at bigger budgets.
Yeah.
Because that's why the new Hollywood was so different. It was the first time, and honestly, probably the only time, we got people who were unproven, trying to be real artists in American cinema, giving a blank check.
Yeah, giving big budgets.
Big budgets. It was like a tour-driven American cinema with basically free reign. And that's the thing. But this movie.
Not to get too off topic, what we were just talking about, but I think the best line in the movie is that Jack Nicholson tells to Billy, where he's talking about these people, when they see you, they get afraid of how free you are, and they'll come up with all the excuses of how free they are. I thought it was a very tapping into something very real in American society and societies in general. Then I thought it was really they don't have a script. Dude, that shit was good. Jack
shit
Nicholson
was profound. That line there,
that was something I would read in a philosophy book.
Yeah, they see you, someone who is truly free, and they fear it, even though they think they are free. They are not.
Yeah,
that's the movie. But this movie, where do you think it goes on the AFI list? We'll get to that point.
I think it goes down a little bit.
Really?
It's a little less relevant today, a little kind of its time, a little antiquated.
The film, the quality of it does not stand toe-to-toe with some of the other films we've seen so far.
But the thing is that it's extremely influential, right? Extremely doesn't do it justice. But it's just kind of one of these things where it's got to be on the list. I will say that much. It's got to be there. But it can kind of go wherever. It
can never
down.
Come off, but it can move.
It can move, and it's one of those things where it almost doesn't matter where it moves.
It's just going with the flow.
It'll just be there, You know what? I might say the same thing about Do the Right Thing. It should be on the list no matter what, but where it is on the list, I don't think matters much.
On the list, it's the right thing.
Yeah. But
here's the real question. Would you actually recommend this movie to people?
Maybe to anybody I don't want to get too what's it called, too judgmental here or anything like that, but anybody who's smokes weed
would probably dig this a little.
Yeah, anybody who does recreational drugs or whatever, kind of has that kind of free flowing kind of feeling or whatever, you could watch this movie. I'm not sure if I would really recommend this movie to anybody that's more me, but more closed-minded, because I'm a straight edge person audience. I don't drink, I don't do drugs, I don't do anything.
Yeah.
You know, like, maybe not to, like, but I'm pretty, like, open about these things.
You're also one of the most, like, open-minded people I fucking know. For God's sake. You will talk to literally anybody about literally anything, no questions asked.
I love it, you know, it's great. Like, conversation is, like, the light of life, you know? And, basically, like, anybody who's more, like, has that mindset, but, like, you know, if somebody pulled out a joint at a party, they would excuse themselves. Like, I don't think this movie is for you. I'm kind of, like, more the person where, like, you know, somebody pulls out a joint at the party, I'm okay, I just won't partake type of thing. But, like, you know, if you're one of the people that joins in, this movie might be for you. If you're feeling a little bit more retrospective, a little more introspective, you know.
was thinking anybody of this generation probably should see this.
Yeah, anybody who grew up in this era, you know, if you grew up in the 60s or 70s ish, like, this movie's pretty good for you.
There's one person I wish to God I knew if he ever saw this before he passed on, and that's our uncle Randy, who is this movie is loosely based on. He did talk his parole officer into going on a cross-country motorcycle trip with him on his motorcycles.
I'm pretty sure it was to, like, Louisiana, like, New Orleans.
Yeah, it was to Mardi Gras.
Not sure it was Mardi Gras.
I'm pretty sure. I know it was.
Well,
I know.
Why else would you go to New Orleans?
Especially in the fucking 60s. It's one of those things where it's
like, you know, this isn't explicitly stated.
It's just heavily implied.
It's implied.
Yeah.
I know. We could ask Aunt Gloria. She might know.
Yeah.
If we could ever get a hold of her. It was hard enough getting a hold of Uncle Randy before he passed.
Yeah. For anybody out there, our Uncle Randy was I guess the only way to describe him is I don't even know how you would describe Uncle Randy in a few words.
It takes a long time. Like, this is the kind of guy who went driving in a dune buggy with a glass of scotch. Not a cup, a glass of scotch.
Live shotgun shells wrapped around his head.
Yes, wrapped around the helmet on his head. And he just kind of did it. And he was like the nicest guy.
He dressed up as Santa for the kids in the cancer ward. And he wore, like, full, like, thermals and gloves and everything to hide all of his biker tattoos.
He's just such an interesting guy.
Yeah.
And this movie kind of, like, really relates to probably what he grew up in.
Yeah. I mean, he was a guy that was in the army and got discharged right before Vietnam, and he probably lived in this kind of a environment.
Kind of away for a while, probably.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting to think about.
Yeah. It's really interesting that I look at this movie and I'm like, I can relate this directly to a singular human being in my life and say, yeah, this movie definitely meant a lot to somebody. Probably meant a lot to a lot of people.
It probably did mean a lot to a lot of people.
But with that, next week we get to a movie that not only meant a lot to a lot of people, meant a lot to, like, a bajillion fucking people.
Oh, God.
The greatest romance of our time. Nah. It's just about a giant boat sinking. Yes, everyone.
Cringe.
Next week we'll be watching Titanic, the movie that made all the money the first time around. Directed by James Cameron. It's got Leo. Dude, it has Leo in it. You love Leo.
Yeah, it's got Leo. And I've never seen the movie, actually.
Really?
No.
I've seen it before. I actually enjoy it.
Really?
Yeah, like, unironically, it might just be my thing where I'm a fucking sucker for a good romance story, but this is actually pretty nice. It's also like, just fucking impressive to see what they do. Really? Like, it is legitimately impressive how James Cameron made this movie. But that's going to be next week on the Film Odyssey, and if you wanted to watch that, keep up with it, whatever, you can look us up on Spotify, Anchor FM, Google Podcast, anywhere you can get podcast, as well as our YouTube channel, In the Frame, where you can find this podcast, as well as the Film Club podcast. But Randy, any last words?
They see how free you are, and they realize how not free they are, and they become afraid.
You must really be enjoying that joint right now.
Where's the fucking grass?
Alright, everybody. Have a good week.